used during the meeting unless it's necessary for emergency. Today we're conducting a brief ARD for Riley Jo. Miss Amanda, at any time if you have any questions, please let us know. Have you received a copy of your procedural safeguards?
Yes.
As a reminder, under state and federal law, all information regarding a student with disabilities is confidential and may only be discussed with individuals who have a legitimate educational interest. All information shared during this ARD meeting will be kept confidential. To maintain a collaborative environment, all of us are expected to conduct ourselves respectfully.
Okay, so we're here today for Riley Jo. She's in the 4th grade. She's a 10-year-old here attending Excelsior ISD. And we're here today for a brief ARD and to go over her new testing and as well as her read. And so in December, we went over her old testing and everything. So we had already kind of been over that. But just to kind of summarize that a little bit, for speech, she still was going, she was getting evaluated, right? Okay. So, and then we had her physical, everything was fine there. She wasn't taking her ADHD medicine, right, at the time?
No, she was off of for a year.
Okay. And then for sociological, there was no changes as far as like living arrangements or anything like that. All of that was the same. For emotional behavior, you requested a counseling evaluation?
Yes.
Okay. And so we've done that, and so we're going to go over the updated counseling evaluation for you as well. For cognitive and intellectual, we went over all of that, and you requested a new dyslexia evaluation. So we're going to go over those new results also from that. For adaptive behavior, there was no additional assessment needed for adaptive behavior. Everything looked fine in that area. She was within functional limits for her age. So that just kind of summarizes that part based on her read. And so now we're going to go over her speech, and I'm going to let Miss Erin Keeling go over that.
Okay, so Riley Jo, she previously qualified, like whenever we first put her in speech therapy, she qualified for articulation and language, but she's done great with articulation, so I just informally assessed that throughout the evaluation. She does still have just a few errors, but it's nothing that she can't correct. And she's easily understood. I remember when I first came here and tested her, and she did have like I think it was an R and a TH. So, but she's come a long way with that. And so we looked at her language skills in depth, and so she's had speech therapy for a while now, working on language skills. And so I want to share my testing and my scores with you on that. And I also gave her the comprehensive assessment of spoken language. And here's my chart. So with that, these are different subtests because it's based on age. So what I did is I'm looking for her general language ability index. I could have tested her and been here all day, but I just hit kind of the highlights of each area. And so with synonyms, that's her receptive category. So what I do is I give them a word, and then I give them 4 words, and they have to choose which of those 4 mean the same as the first one. So you really have to listen because I can't repeat myself. So I'm like, okay, pay attention. But she did really well. She got an 82, and remember from the previous 77 and below is considered a concern. So an 82, I thought she did pretty good with that. I could tell at the end she would kind of start guessing, and I'm like, do you really know that? No, ma'am, I'm just guessing at this point. I'm like, okay, at least you're honest. For expressive, okay, and she has really good manners. So does your sister, which I know you expect that, but I'm just saying. Thank you for that. Expressive vocabulary, so that's her naming things, but remember it has to be grammatically correct. And it's not that she can't name things, but they got increasingly harder pretty quickly. And so that resulted in a 79. So I'm not saying that her expressive, like she does express herself, definitely, okay? But it's not always grammatically correct, which kind of suppresses her score. So I get that everybody would agree with that. The other thing is grammatical judgment. It's kind of the same subtest, but it's a different age. So it's, you know, and so with this one, she first started having to like determine what goes in the blank with correct grammar. The next thing it goes to is Miss Erin's going to read you a sentence, and you have to tell me whether it's grammatically correct or not. So I made her give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, just to make it a little more fun. And then if she gave me a thumbs down, how can we correct that? And so, but that resulted in a 55, which is low. It's lower because she didn't always understand if something was incorrect, you know? And then if she had difficulty correcting it.
Mhm.
And so, and I don't want to say like she's come a long way with her grammar, but I don't know that it's reflected within her conversational speech all the time. And it's not like you don't understand her, it's that if she drops an ing, because we live in East Texas, it's going to be wrong on the test, you know? Or if we've been working on past tense ed and she's like, yeah, but it's this, but it might not always be. So she always understands the general idea, but the grammar isn't always there. Okay. Inferencing, that's problem solving. So like I would give her a situation, and what do you think he meant by that? You know, and she would have to tell me. And honestly, it wasn't far off. If I read you her comments, it wasn't, but it wasn't the correct response either. And so she received a 79 on that subtest. And so that will be something we continue to work on. I know that you can't compare your girls, but I know you do. But with Riley Jo, she worked hard throughout every subtest, you know, and I'm like, do you need a break? And she's like, no ma'am, I'm good. And she worked really hard. But with all of this to say overall, she does still meet eligibility criteria as a speech impaired student. And and while I know that there's going to be other criteria we discuss, I still feel like she needs the services in order to help her be successful because she has made progress on the goals that we have. And I feel like if I can take these areas of weakness and only use it to help support the teacher in the other areas, then it will be a blessing in the long run. So that's my recommendation to the committee, that she continues to meet eligibility criteria as a speech impaired student in the area of language only, not articulation. And as far as fluency and stuttering, like when we look at that, she's good. That's not a problem. Her voice quality is fine. I don't have concerns with that. If I did, I would have already called you and we would have already gotten other assistance. But with that being said, and I've included her speech therapy data in here, but she's made great progress, but she continues, I think, to represent an educational need for services. So I know that was different than the other, but are you okay with continuing speech therapy services?
Yes.
Okay, just because they've been so beneficial, and I thought, well, let's go ahead and continue that, you know?
Yes.
So any questions from anybody?
Well, I have seen such a great improvement. I've
Good.
known her a long
Yes.
time, and speech has really
Good,
been good for her.
good, good. Well, then we will just continue what we started. Okay, back to you.
Okay, so we are at the emotional and behavioral portion, and a counseling evaluation was requested by you, Ms. Hadaway, and so we have decided to go ahead and go forth with that. So we are going to go over the emotional report side of it.
Alright, y'all bear with me. I woke up with a migraine this morning. I took medicine. I'm kind of out of it, but we're gonna make it. So Ms. Hadaway was interviewed by phone, and she reported that Raleigh Joe's friendly to everyone, sings all the time and dances, and likes watching TV. She said Raleigh Joe loves school and likes math, and at age 5, she was diagnosed with ADHD by a pediatrician and took Concerta until age 7. At which time the family no longer had the financial resources to pay for the doctor visits and medication. She currently sees Dr. Ryan Head, who indicated that Raleigh Joe no longer meets criteria for ADHD, and Raleigh Joe takes clonidine, 0.2 milligrams every night to help her sleep, and she has taken this medication for 2 or 3 years. Raleigh Joe sees Dr. Golden for eye and vision problems, and she was evaluated by Dr. Lehman at some point due to a hole in the left eye. Dr. Golden is keeping an eye on that. She said Raleigh Joe wants to wear contacts instead of glasses, but contacts are unaffordable at this time. Her primary concerns for Raleigh Joe at school are attention span and fiddling a lot. At home, her primary concern is emotional support, because Raleigh Joe will put her head down like she's going to cry, but she won't talk to her or tell her why. And her primary concern for Raleigh Joe in the community is her behavior of wandering off instead of staying with mom. And, do you want me to say this last part? Is that okay if I share that?
No,
So keep it to myself?
Mhm.
Okay. So I interviewed Raleigh Joe. She was friendly, polite, and cooperative. She stated that she felt good and that she feels good most of the time. A few times during the interview, I had a little difficulty understanding what Raleigh Joe was trying to get across in her responses, so I would have to ask questions for clarification. She lives with mom, dad, 12-year-old brother, 12-year-old sister, and her dad's cousin. She relayed positive thoughts and feelings about her family members. She's in the 4th grade, likes school, has the most problems in math with multiplication. She indicated that she has 14 friends, but no best friend. For fun, she likes to play on her phone, watch TV, play video games, play with Barbie dolls, and play teacher in her room. She has a hard time going to sleep sometimes and awakens during the night, and she takes Klonidine to make her go to bed, but she denied having any bad dreams. When asked if there's anything that worries her, bothers her, makes her nervous, she relayed that sometimes she has a hard time with spelling. It is hard to do work on her own, and she does not know how to answer the teacher or questions on her paper. She denied appetite problems, hallucinations, ever feeling so sad she no longer wanted to live, ever feeling so mad she wanted to hurt someone badly, abuse or substance use. When asked if she would like to receive counseling at school, she said yes, and related she would like to be seen every other week to talk about her family and how school is going. I talked with Miss Elena, and she related that Raleigh Joe has difficulty assessing herself and her needs, and she requires help with being responsible for her effort in learning at school, her self-care, and her personal hygiene. So I would like to work on that. And then Raleigh Joe's homeroom teacher, who teaches her English, language arts, reading, science, and social studies, was interviewed. Her teacher reported Raleigh Joe's sweet, affectionate, and funny, and she's happy-go-lucky most of the time. However, she has to be redirected a lot, because if she isn't, she will just sit there, shut down, and zone out. She frequently asks for help from the teacher and the teacher's aide. And when asked what she wants Raleigh Joe to do in the classroom, she stated she would like for her to try harder, depend on herself to do more, and not frequently ask for help. Slow down, pay attention, and use her strategies instead of having to be reminded. So, does anybody have any questions? So counseling as a related service is recommended. At the current time, counseling is recommended to identify her feelings and self-care needs, and to increase responsibility, self-confidence, and independence. And so the goal that I put in for her is, by the end of 36 instructional weeks, using various cognitive behavioral methods and cues, Raleigh Joe will identify her feelings and self-care needs and state at least 5 positive ways to increase responsibility, self-confidence, and independence, with success being measured at a rate of 70% through counseling sessions, observations, and teacher staff feedback.
Sounds good.